Okay, guys, I am joined today by Sara Collins, who is getting ready for the biggest fight of her life. She's about to fight in a #1 contender fight in the featherweight division. The Bellator Champions Series lands in London. Sara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I woke up early to do a lot of interviews, but apart from that, I'm doing fine.
Yeah, media day is probably the bane of a lot of fighters' existence, I'm sure. But we'll make this one quick and painless, and hopefully have a bit of fun along the way. At the moment, are you still in Australia, or have you moved into Europe to continue your preparations here?
Yeah, I'm still in Australia. It's Friday morning. I leave on Sunday to go to London.
Okay, and how will your adjustments for your training look over the course of fight week? What kind of things do you have planned?
Just trying to stay awake late is probably the hardest because I probably won't fight until like 9, 10 o'clock at night. So trying to stay awake and not go to sleep by a.m. will be the hardest part of fight week. But we got a couple of things planned, so yeah.
And yeah, you're saying there's probably going to be like 10 p.m. local time in London when you do fight. What time is that for you at home?
So we're 8 hours ahead. So the card in Australia starts at 2 a.m. So I guess I'll be fighting at like, I don't know, 5, 6 a.m. Yeah, Australian time.
That's going to be a rough adjustment. Yeah, you kind of, you'll understand some of the pain and frustration that us European guys have to go through when we want to watch Prime MMA over in the States or some of those Vegas UFC cards. But thankfully now I've never had to fight at that hour, so I don't envy you that one. Are you planning on trying to adjust to the local time sleep-wise, or are you going to just kind of white knuckle it and ride it straight through?
No, I'm going to try and adjust as best as possible. Try and sleep in the mornings and try and stay up to at least like 10 o'clock each night, just so I'm awake and ready to go on fight night at that time.
No, fair enough. This fight, of course, now has been bumped up to main event status after the Fabian Edwards fight fell out. Tell me a bit about how you found out that news and what was your reaction?
So I woke up yesterday morning and checked Instagram, and there was the post that I am now the main event.
That's pretty wild. You found out on social media?
Yeah, I was disappointed because the last Fabian and Johnny fight was really good, so I was looking forward to watching that again. And they were just cool to have around on the week, but so now here we are, and I got extra media commitments and all the fun stuff that comes with being the main event.
Yeah, there's a price, isn't there? There's a cost that comes to being in such a high-profile spot, I suppose, and it's going to add to your workload this week for sure.
Yeah, hopefully when I get there, the schedule is not too hectic because, we're in London for a week. So I'd like to, I don't know, go see Buckingham Palace one day or something. But yeah, it is what it is.
Are you planning on hanging around London for long after the fight?
No, I'm not. Every time I've fought in Europe, I've hung around and had a bit of a holiday. But this time I'm not going to.
We'll touch on a couple of your previous fights as well. I mean, you came into Bellator. I mean, you're just 5-0 at the moment, which is kind of wild considering the position we see it in. You came in, I believe you were 3-0 when you came in, and the level of competition that's been thrown at you, like, it's been a sink or swim kind of journey for you in Bellator. I mean, you got Pam Sorensen, a former Invicta champ, in your debut, and then you've got Sinead Kavanagh, who previously fought Cyborg in your next fight, and now you're going in there against a #1 contender fight against Leah McCourt, who had been rumoured to maybe be facing Cyborg. So, as a relatively inexperienced professional fighter, I mean, like I said, just those 5 professional fights, how do you manage that type of that weight that gets thrown at you when someone offers you a shot at such a big fight? Surely there's like, a psychological battle there where you're trying to maybe just overcome, a little bit of nervousness. It's only a natural reaction, I suppose, for a lot of people. But how do you balance that mentally?
I try not to think about the fight too much, otherwise I get stuck in my head. So I like to just distract myself with work, training, other things, not think about it too much. I think everyone in Bellator is so good, so I had no option but to fight these really amazing people. So I think I always knew that going into Bellator, nothing would be easy, and that's just kind of been the reality of the situation the whole time.
Yeah, now you find yourself here at this juncture where it's been billed as a #1 contender fight in my opinion, easily the strongest featherweight division between PFL and Bellator, the best female featherweights in the world are there, and you're now finding yourself swimming in the deep end of that pool with all of the sharks. How are you feeling going into this fight, confidence-wise? Are you kind of appreciative of the position you're in, or are you tunnel vision? Are you really focusing on just getting your hand raised next week?
Yeah, so I think I'm really just focused on this fight at the moment. I've been wanting to fight Leah for a while. I think match-wise, it's just a good match for me. So, yeah, all my focus is on this fight, and whatever the outcome, I'll look to the future after this fight.
There's an interesting wrinkle in the story about this fight. I mean, both of you girls come from originally a judo background before transitioning into mixed martial arts. I mean, just for anyone who's watching and maybe doesn't know much about you, just give us a brief outline of your sort of history in judo. I know you've got a massive competition history before you ever went into mixed martial arts. Isn't that right?
Yeah, so I started judo when I was about 7-8 years old and did it up until I was 25, 26. And from about 16 to the time I finished, I competed the whole time around the world. About 12 competitions around the world each year in judo. And then I eventually stopped just because the injuries were too much.
Yeah, it is quite a brutal sport. Like I've done a lot of it over the years, and my knees are older than I am at this stage. You do take a bit of a beating, don't you?
Yeah, the thought of putting a judo gi back on and doing some judo, just the thought of it hurts alone.
Yeah, absolutely. The impact is our joints are only allowed to take so much impact, And continuing on the grappling theme, I mean, I mentioned there, Leah, I think, was originally a judo black belt as well before she made that transition, and she's quite a decorated, IBJJF jiu-jitsu kind of competition player as well. In the grappling exchanges, have you been watching much of, picking many holes in what you might see in her game in that regard, and how do you see the grappling exchanges playing out in this fight?
I think she's like a very bendy, scrappy grappler, but which is sometimes hard to control, but I think she makes a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to capitalize on that when she does.
Yeah, she's for sure. I mean, she's probably not got the kind of credentials that you have in the judo circuit, but I think she definitely won a no-gi world, I believe, at brown belt as well in jiu-jitsu. So it's going to make for, an interesting stylistic matchup. Given that you've only had those small-ish number of professional fights and you're now fighting at such a high level, the sample size, of course, that we've seen from you, maybe we haven't got a full picture yet of how well you've rounded out your skill set. How long overall have you been training mixed martial arts? How quick was your transition through the amateur ranks and into the pro game?
Yeah, so I didn't have any amateur fights. I went straight to professional, but I did kind of, as my amateur career, I did a couple of Muay Thai fights just to get used to striking in a fight and not going straight into looking for the grapple. So I think that was kind of like my amateur career, and then went straight into professional MMA. So I think I was training striking for maybe 2 years before I had my first pro MMA fight.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It's quite the leap to just get straight into the professional game. But obviously, as a credentialed grappler, you do have like a hell of a lot of competition experience, albeit it's not the exact same discipline. But that's still a pretty impressive leap. Have you found it a very difficult transition? Are you sort of learning on the job at the moment? Are you still figuring out a hell of a lot of things with your game?
Yeah, I still feel like I'm a baby in MMA and every day is a learning curve. But I think in the last year, I've matured as a fighter a lot and really come into myself and found where I can be the best in the cage.
Okay, and I mentioned earlier about the PFL Bellator link. We're seeing a massive tournament taking place, obviously, just on the other side there of the co-promotion thing, the PFL $1 million tournament. There's a hell of a lot of brilliant women at flyweight in PFL as well. What other female fighters within the two promotions have you been most impressed by over the last year or two?
That's a good question. Well, I think in PFL, Larissa's been great. She pretty much walked through everyone in the last tournament she did. And then, yeah, in Bellator, there's no one who I've been extremely impressed by. I want to fight all of them. So probably Cyborg is still the most impressive there as well. So I think their fight is going to be great.
Yeah, well, I mean, that fight is going to be such a massive high-profile occasion. It's the co-main, isn't it, to the Francis Ngannou and Ferreira fight. So how do you think that fight will play out?
I don't think it's going to go to the distance. I think it'll be finished in 2 rounds, and I think Cyborg will win.
Yeah, she's still the number one. She's still the one to beat, really, at this weight class. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the likes of Dakota Dichiva and Liz Carmouche as well. They've been sort of Liz Carmouche has kind of regenerated her career really under the PFL banner, and Dakota is kind of the rising star. How far do you think Dakota Dichiva can go?
I think she'll probably win the tournament this year, and then if PFL are lucky to keep her, I think she'll win the next one as well. Yeah, I think she's just I don't follow the flyweights too closely, but I don't think in PFL or Bellator there's anyone that's going to give her any trouble.
Well, listen, I won't take you any more of your time. I know you're a busy woman today and a hell of a lot of media obligations. So I want to thank you for your time and wish you all the best in your fight next week in London.
Thank you.
All right, cheers, Sarah. Take care.
Bye-bye.